Hi, my name is Carol. I'm part of the team working on the comprehensive update to the Village of Kenilworth zoning code. An open house was held on Tuesday, November 4th at Village Hall, seeking the community's feedback on proposed updates to the business district design guidelines, residential driveway and parking area design, the sign code, and zoning relief processes such as variations. This slideshow was created to bring the zoning code open house to anyone unable to join us in person. We encourage you to share your thoughts, questions, or concerns with us. A link to an open house feedback survey is located on the Village's website in the same location as this presentation and will be shared at the end of the slides. To begin, here's an overview of the zoning code update process to date. My firm, Tesco Associates, was contracted by the Village to perform an audit of the zoning code in 2024 to review the code in its entirety and share recommendations for improvements. Following the audit, the Village Board voted to proceed with a full update to the code. The Zoning Code Work Group was then established to review and guide the update. In March of 2025, our team began revising the code a few chapters at a time, with subsequent reviews by the Zoning Code Work Group. In the summer, 2 surveys were distributed to the community seeking input on design in both the business district and in residential districts. Feedback from the surveys was used to guide updates to the business district design guidelines, which will review shortly, and other zoning regulations specific to residential districts. In terms of next steps, a final full draft of the zoning code will be considered at a public hearing with the Plan Commission, with final adoption considered by the Village Board in the first quarter of 2026. Summaries of feedback received in both surveys focusing on design are available on the Village website. The QR codes on this slide will take you directly to these summaries. Feedback from those surveys was used to guide updates to the business district design guidelines and to zoning regulations applicable to residential districts. Over the next several slides, I'll review recommendations related to updated design guidelines applicable to the business district. The existing business district design guidelines were adopted in 2013 to further the vision for the Green Bay Road corridor established in the 2008 Comprehensive Plan. However, a new vision was adopted in 2022, and the Village is seeking to update the design guidelines to reflect the present-day vision for the Green Bay Road corridor. Key proposed updates include a new set of design standards, essentially minimum expectations, a more robust set of sustainable design guidelines to provide more direction on what materials and considerations are encouraged. Overall, the document includes much the same guidelines, but has been reorganized to help readers find information more quickly, and the language revised to focus on context. There are roughly 17 proposed design standards. Half are listed below and half on the next slide. These are existing guidelines that were chosen based on their foundational nature in creating and preserving a pedestrian scale district. Please feel free to pause the video to view these design standards in more detail. One of these standards is applicable only to special uses or planned unit developments. For every 5 feet of height beyond the maximum permitted, all floors above the 3rd story must be set back along all property lines adjacent for residential use. The next set of slides are design guidelines intended to help express the community's design preferences and priorities. Because these are guidelines, it should be understood that not all developments will follow each and every one of these guidelines. Sustainable design guidelines encourage the use of sustainable building practices and design approaches. These range from green infrastructure design and permeable surfaces, durable and sustainable materials, native landscaping, green or white roofs, and more. A range of design elements are addressed in the design guidelines. I'll share them one at a time. The first element is site planning. These guidelines shape how buildings, parking, access points, and pedestrians move around on the site. An example guideline is that entries and storefronts should be prominent, welcoming, and scaled appropriately for the building. Next is landscaping and screening. These guidelines echo a preference from the community to enhance landscaping along the corridor. An example guideline is to use landscaping to break up any blank walls and enhance building views. Guidelines for off-street parking areas include prioritizing access from alleys or side streets instead of Green Bay Road, and the inclusion of landscaping and low masonry walls to soften views of parking lots from public streets. Moving from site design to building design, there's a section of guidelines focused on building form and bulk, intended to encourage design to address how individual sites interact with their neighbors. One example guideline is to maintain a parallel orientation with the street for visual consistency. In terms of building materials, the design guidelines encourage long-lasting materials and combination of materials which soften building mass. Architectural elements are highly encouraged, with guidelines recommending the use of columns, pilasters, and window placement to divide buildings into smaller, human-scaled segments. In terms of roof styles and height, the design guidelines encourage roof lines, slopes, and details which stay true to the architecture and design of the building, and seek usable rooftop areas to be set back from building edges to reduce visual impacts. The next section that we wanted to share an update about is the sign code. The sign code is being updated principally because it is no longer legally defensible. This is because the code regulates signs based on what they say instead of how they look. As much as possible, existing regulations have been updated to remain the same while transitioning to be content neutral. Businesses and institutions such as schools and churches are the primary users of the sign code. They use it to understand what types and what sizes of signs are permitted. On this slide, we share examples of common sign types, wall signs, window signs, and awning signs being some of the most common in Kenilworth. The Zoning Code Workgroup is currently considering additional regulations, such as the limit on the number of items or colors per sign, or the types of colors permitted. The example here of a halo-lit sign is also under consideration. In the next section, we'll share some recommendations for residential driveways and garages. On this slide, we have 3 recommendations being considered. The first is to establish a maximum width for driveways, which would be limited to a double lane. The second is to continue to limit the width of garage doors facing a public street, but detached garages would be exempt. A third consideration is for a minimum number of guest parking spaces for dwelling units located in the business district to reduce overflow onto village streets. The next 2 slides show example designs of parking pads, essentially off-street parking areas which are not garaged. What designs, if any, could be permitted in front or corner side yards is under consideration. On this slide, we have 2 examples of parking pad designs in the front yard of a mid-block lot. On the left, the pad is parallel to the street, and on the right, the pad is parallel to the driveway. On this slide, we have 2 examples of parking pad designs on corner lots. While examples on the slide before all use the main driveway to access the parking pad, another design option indicated by the arrows for a second curb cut just to serve a parking pad is being considered. Do any of the designs you have seen seem appropriate? Please let us know in the survey. The last set of recommendations we'll cover in this presentation are about procedures related to zoning relief. Based on feedback from the community, the Zoning Code Workgroup, and staff experience, the following procedures are proposed. In addition to the typical variation process, a new process would be established for minor variances. These minor variances would be reviewed by staff against the same variation standards that the Zoning Board of Appeals considers. Variations for signs would continue to be considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals. In terms of procedures, our team heard one thing loud and clear from the community. Zoning and design discussions are too interrelated to separate. We also know that complex projects warrant good discussion, but the current processes often feel fragmented. For these reasons, we recommend that the Architectural Review Commission and the Plan Commission be consolidated. The following slide explains how this change would impact the planned unit development and certificate of appropriateness approval procedures. The procedure for special use requests will remain unchanged. The Plan Commission considers a special use request at a public hearing, forwards a recommendation to the Village Board, who takes final action. The Planned Unit Development, or PUD, procedure has a few changes. First, a neighborhood meeting would continue to be required, but notices would have to go to all properties within 500 feet instead of 250 feet of the subject site. Then the PUD request would proceed directly to a public hearing with the Plan Commission, who would make a recommendation about the PUD and on the certificate of appropriateness. The Village Board would then take final action, taking into account the Plan Commission's recommendations. Lastly, a certificate of appropriateness will no longer be a requirement for signs unless a sign requires a variation. Other non-residential improvements will be categorized as either major or minor. Major improvements will include new development and significant redevelopments and will continue to require a COA. Minor improvements, such as a new awning, sign, or light fixture, will be administratively reviewed. We encourage you to share your thoughts about these recommendations via this survey. A link to the survey is also posted on the Village's website alongside this video on the Zoning Code Update page. The survey will remain open until November 30th. Thank you for taking the time to watch this recording.